Hi guys, King Wizard here today again with a little discussion video. This is probably going to be pretty short because I really kind of wanted to make a video on this for these 3 or 4 cards, but I feel like there are other cards that can apply to this as well. I just really couldn't think of any. Uh, I feel like I know that there are others out there. I just couldn't think of them at the time, and I really just kind of wanted to get this video out there. So this discussion video is going to be on why does Konami design certain cards with extreme limitations on the cards. Um, like, and what's weird about this is that they do it on cards that are on archetypes that are a part of an archetype that don't that aren't competitive, and that they didn't really design the archetype itself to really compete with the other archetypes that they already had out. And it's really kind of mind-boggling to me as to why they would do this. Now, some of the limitations on the surface, you would think, okay, that's a little reasonable because, it's just for that archetype. You're not going to be playing a deck that, has like 5 different types in it, so that limitation isn't going to completely hinder it. It's these cards are meant to be played in a deck with everything else of the same type, so it's not that big of a deal. But these 3 cards, 3 to 4 cards, and mainly are a part of an archetype that it doesn't really make sense as to why it does it. Like, it's pretty undersupported for what they do. Uh, so to start off, I have Unizombie. This is a card that I've been testing a lot lately in a new deck that I've been working on the past 2 days, called just a zombie masked hero build, um, or a 4-axis zombie hero build, I guess. And you know, it's a great card. Unizombie is probably the best card that I'm gonna mention in this video, and he works really well with the deck. But I'll go off and do my combos and then get a field out of like a Masked Hero Diane, a Masked Hero Darklaw, and an Evil Swarm Ouroboros out in the same turn. Then I'll go to attack, and I'm like, why can't I attack? His limitation to me is something that is so brief in his card. Like, it's in the middle of the card text, and it's just it's something that I completely forget about. And while it does suck for that first turn, against most decks it won't be an issue because having a field of, a 2800 pretty much beat stick, a Dark Claw, and an Evil Swarm Ouroboros is pretty daunting. But for Necros, that's not much of an issue. They could just trish it away as long as as long as I have a hand, they can just trish it away. So that prevents me from getting in any damage, and then they still have the option of getting rid of my field, or getting rid of cards on my field. And it's something that I really don't understand about Unizombie, because he makes it so during the turn that you activate his effect, only zombie type monsters can attack. Now, that's perfectly fine with Zombie World. In my build, in this zombie hero build, I do actually run Zombie World, and it is really good. It allows for so many more plays. But when I don't have it, and I can still go off because it's not required to make plays, it just increases the amount of plays that I can make, or the ease of the plays that I make. Without Zombie World, his effect... Oh, well, hell. Without Zombie World, his effect is really annoying. That limitation is so limiting. It's so... Well, that limitation is so limiting. It's such a massive, like, almost like a buzzkill, because, you're doing all this stuff, all these combos, in order to get out this field, and then you can't attack with it. And even the stuff that he was meant to do, okay, if you look at him, he's a tuner. He can potentially make himself a level 5 or a level 4, or you could just keep him at a 3. So you think, okay, he's a tuner. He could be used to synchro. Well, if you look at zombie-type synchros, there's only 3. 3 zombie-type synchros, and these are the ones that were out a long, long time ago. These are really, really old cards, and they haven't released any zombie synchros since then. Okay, so then you think, what about using him as an Xyz? Alright, well, for the most part, you're probably going to be either using him as a 5 or a 4. You could potentially use him as a 3, but again, this build is a 4-axis zombie hero, and I don't think he was built with like another level 3 zombie in mind, because there aren't that many level 3 zombies that are even somewhat viable. Most of them are level 4, and that's the way that they've always built good zombies. Like Zombie Master's level 4, Mizuki's level 4, the Onis are level 4, and even the ones that aren't level 4, the good ones, Plague Spreader, it's a level 2. And yeah, he can alter the level, so you can potentially go into a 3-axis, Uni Zombie and then Plague, and then increase Plague's level. But that's the only things that you're going to be able to make with that is a Ghost Trick Alucard and a number 48 Shadow Lich. The only one of those that sees any play really is Ghost Trick Alucard, and it's not that amazing of a card. It really all it does is pop your opponent's back row. As for potentially making himself a level 5, because there are a decent amount of level 5 zombies, you're literally limited to only Vampire Bram. For anything higher, there's 2 level 8s. One of them is only in the OCG, and 1 level 6. And they're all pretty subpar. Zombie Stein is probably the best one out of all of the zombie Xyz, and he still isn't that great, and he requires 2 darks. So it's very limiting again on that aspect. So I don't understand that limitation. I understand that you can get around it with Zombie World. I understand that, but Zombie World, in order to increase the consistency of grabbing it or of getting it, it takes up a lot of space. And if you run 3 copies of Zombie World, and that's still not enough, which is what I'm running, then dedicating more slots in your deck to something like terraforming is a little stupid, in my opinion. So yeah, that's just my take on Uni-Zombie, or at least that limitation effect that it has. Next up we have Pilica, Descendant of Gusto. If you noticed, all of these cards are cards that I've been playing with, or are a part of an archetype that I have played or been playing with. Like Gustos is something that I've recently been playing with. I've always played zombies and Fire Fist though. But yeah, with Pilica, her effect of, if you activated this effect, you cannot special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except for wind monsters. That stops so many potential high-level synchro plays with Pilica, or because of Pilica. If you see, because I don't have this deck built on Dev Pro, something like Hyper Psychic Blaster is an Earth, Thought Ruler Archfiend is a Dark, and Black Rose Dragon is a Fire. So I have all of these other slots, and Armades is a Light. I have all of these slots that I can't use Pilica. Like Pilica makes them dead. And so everything else has to be dedicated to wind. And when you look at it, there aren't that many good wind Xyz monsters, really. Or, not Xyz, synchros. There's a lot of high-level ones, mainly the Stardust ones. There's 3, the Stardust ones, so the Majestic Star Dragon, Shooting Star, and then Stardust Warrior. Then there's a Mecha Phantom Beast, so that's already out of the blue. Mistworm, I don't know if the deck can actually go into it, but you get what I'm saying. There's not that many of them that you can either go into or are either even worth going into or anything. It's a limitation built upon the idea that, okay, it can't be broken because the archetype, it would be broken if it didn't have that limitation, because it would be able to go into so many other things. Well, that limitation is completely hindering the archetype itself. by limiting it to only these set few cards that it can go into, and it really prevents them from doing a whole lot of other things outside of going into these rather subpar synchros. Next up we have Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Boar. I am pretty well acquainted with this card's limitation, because it has always been something that has really bothered me. This card cannot be used as a synchro material monster except for the synchro summon of a fire monster. Now, the fact that he's level 4 in an archetype that has 2 variants, a 3-axis and a 4-axis, and the fact that he's level 4 means that you're most likely going to be running him in a 4-axis build. So when you look at fire synchros that are level 8, since that's going to be most likely what you're going to be going into, 5, one of them Black Brute Drago requires a Gemini monster, which is silly. One of them is in the OCG and requires a non-tuner Pendulum monster. This one requires a Gen X controller, so that leaves you with literally 2, Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Kieran and Crimson Blader. Now, I understand the limitation. It's meant to go into Kieran, which, a lot of times that's not half bad, because he can be a wall, and as well as helping you get over some of your opponent's tougher cards. But that limitation prevents the deck from being able to access the level 8 synchro toolbox. And out of the synchros, out of all the levels to the synchro, level 8 is probably one of the best. It has the widest variety of good generic level 8s. Now, Crimson Blader is technically a generic synchro level 8, but it falls into the category for that Boar can go into because it's fire. Now, that is a good option. I do run Crimson Blader in the 4-axis build, but there are there's a lot of decks nowadays that Crimson Blader isn't really effective against. Mainly, Burning Abyss and Tellarknights, because they both go into Xyz monsters, so they don't count towards Crimson Blader's effect. So even if you do attack one of their monsters and manage to destroy it, it doesn't matter. So the fact that they have this limitation on Boar, and you can literally only go into 2 synchros pretty much with it, is extremely limiting. Now, I guess you can make the argument that you can go into Black Rose Dragon in a 3-axis build, maybe. I don't think I've seen a single build, a single 3-axis build, or even a 3.5-axis build run Boar. And the only reason that they would have to run it is to just be able to run Black Rose. That's the only reason. And while Black Rose is a good card, it's definitely not a reason to, waste slots in a deck for. 3-axis builds, Fire Fist alone have multiple ways of getting rid of certain cards. Nuking the field isn't necessarily something that they're going to want to do. Especially like if you already have like a Tenki and a Tensu on board, you're not going to really want to get rid of those resources. So yeah, that's the video, that's the discussion. I feel like there are a lot more cards out there that have similar limitations. I just can't really think of them at the moment, and these are just cards that I've ran into recently. Well, I've known about Boar, but Pilica and Unizombie are cards that have limitations that I've ran into recently that I really don't understand why they have the limitation. Oh, and I forgot to bring up Horse Prince. He also is obviously part of the Fire Fist archetype. His limitation of after you synchro summon him, you cannot special summon level 5 or higher monsters for the rest of this turn. Now, I can understand that limitation, because the amount of monsters they could swarm the field with if they didn't have that limitation would be pretty ridiculous. Because 3-axis, as everybody knows, we never really got a chance when Spirit first came out to play 3-axis Fire Fist efficiently, or at full power, because as soon as Spirit came out, she was, or he, it, whatever, was pretty much auto limit 1. And so that pretty much prevented us from really playing the deck at peak efficiency. So we never even got to really play the deck that well, I guess. But even now, being able to constantly recycle and make all these plays, make all these recurring plays, even next turn, if they happen to get rid of our field, make the play the next turn because Horse Prince grabs Rooster, Rooster can grab a Spirit, and you can make the play next turn. Perfectly fine. If they didn't have that limitation, you would most likely be able to blow up in one turn of a field of, maybe potentially 3 Horse Princes on the field all at once. That would be really drastic overextension in my opinion. It may not be the best thing, but it would be possible. Types of loops like that would be possible if it didn't have that limitation. And 3-axis Fire Fist was an issue enough in the OCG in order for it to be pretty much auto shut down in the TCG before we ever got it at full power. So without that limitation, it would be even more ridiculous, or it would have been. So yeah, that's this discussion video. Like I said, I feel like there are more limitation or cards that have arbitrary limitations on them that don't really make sense, or they kind of hinder the archetype itself instead of preventing it from being broken. And like there are a few that I know are on the tip of my tongue. I just can't think of them for the life of me. So yeah, if you guys like the video, if you agree, whatever, thumbs up the video, please. If you have any tips or suggestions, or if you know of a card that has an arbitrary limitation, please leave a comment about it down below. If you want to get in contact with me, you can send me a message over on YouTube, or you can go on Pojo and send me a message over there. My username is in my channel description here on YouTube. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have a good day.